The average American produces about a ton of waste per year. This adds up to about 300 million tons of waste in America alone. And this is after each American recycles about 40% of their waste. Amazingly, this is up from 8% in 1990. Let's learn a little bit more about recycling. So today we're meeting with Jeff Callahan, who's manager of resource conservation at a single stream recycling center. So, Jeff, what's your job?
Well, I manage resource conservation for the county, and our job is to manage primarily the solid waste in the county, recycling, electronics, hazardous waste materials, and also the traditional recycling materials here at the facility. Over the last several years, throughout the United States, we've transitioned to a single stream system where we put all the paper and all the cans and bottles all in one bin at the curb. Makes it much more convenient for the homeowners, is much more efficient collection for the haulers, and then we built the technology into the plant to separate the materials out into all their individual commodities. Okay, so this is part of our outreach effort. We have a walkway along the side of the facility where residents can come in, observe what's going on in the facility, and we bring around 3,000 or 4,000 people through the facility every year to tour the facility and learn about recycling.
What is this that we're looking at?
Well, on the far side, the V200 screen is a corrugated box screen. That scalps off all the corrugated boxes automatically. The corrugated screen is sized to allow small materials that are smaller than about this big to fall through the screen. Corrugated boxes float on top of the discs and get scalped off and screened automatically. The smaller material falls through and gets conveyed to this line, and the sorters are sorting various materials that are not compatible with what we sell.
So what happens to recycled cardboard? What does it become?
It becomes new cardboard boxes.
Wow.
Some of our materials also shipped over to the Far East, to China and Korea.
Wow. And so the smaller material is also brought along and recycled. What happens to that?
Sure. Well, all of the paper and cans and bottles are now in this mix. The screens at the far ends take off all of the newspaper. We make a material called Number 7 News. It's newspaper, magazines, and junk mail. And we sell it to a company in Portland, Oregon called Norpac, and they make it back into newspaper. All of the remaining material out of that screen is small amounts of paper and all of our cans and bottles, and that goes off to the next screening system.
So in the end, recycled paper actually is useful. It can become something that can be used in many different applications.
Oh, absolutely. We recycle about 97% of the material that comes into our facility. Recycled material is a very valuable commodity. We made $5 million in selling the materials last year.
Wow.
Every time the employees take a break, either morning or afternoon breaks for lunch, we have workers that have to go into the screens and rip off the plastic bags that get wrapped around the screen axles. Maintenance on all the moving parts takes place every day, either before or after the shift.
The materials are getting smaller and smaller, and you can see them moving down the conveyor belt behind me. But what's absolutely amazing is that these materials move underneath the magnet, and the metals are separated out.
And then the belt carries it out past the magnet, drops the can, and it goes up this conveyor belt and drops it into our cage automatically.
This is absolutely amazing. What's going on right here?
This is our eddy current separator. As the cans go towards the end of the belt, they pick up a magnetic charge, and magnets at the end of the belt repel the aluminum can. Our most valuable material.
What we're looking at here is the baling process, where cans can be released onto the conveyor belt, dropped into the baler, compressed, and made much more transportable. Can you answer the question, are you supposed to crush your cans before you put it in a recycling bin, or not?
Actually, we prefer now not to have the cans squashed because of the way the screens work. The screens actually look at flat pieces, or they process the material as flats and rounds. So we like the cans round so that they roll back off the screen and let the flat paper roll up the screen.
But in the end, they are crushed. How many cans are in a bale like that?
That all goes through our baler. We have about 56,000 cans in each one of these bales.
Woo! This looks really cool. What's going on?
Well, this is the optical sorter. All of our glass has been broken down into fairly similar sized pieces. It then falls down, cascades down this slide. Inside this machine there's a glass plate with a camera, and it's shooting light rays through the glass. If light comes through and hits this, and the light doesn't get to the receiver tells the computer that something's not glass and has to get rid of it. The computer activates an air jet, pushes it a little bit over, and separates it out from the glass.
So recycling has happened. Everything's been brought through different filters and broken down into smaller and smaller bits. And this is glass, and you might think that I'm sticking my hands into dangerous sharp glass, but it's been processed so much the corners are rounded off, much like sea glass.
We do have a little bit of extra storage on site at this time due to the downturn in the worldwide economy. We made $5 million last year in 2008. In 2009, we made about $3 million. So we took a very big hit on the market prices as companies don't build computers because nobody's buying computers. They don't need corrugated boxes to put the computers in. So there's a reduction in the amount of materials that's used.
So right now we're going to take a step outside of the single stream recycling, and we're going to talk about the bottom line nature of what's going on with recycling. Right here we have Eric Lombardi, who is Executive Director of EcoCycle, and he's going to help us figure out what's going on. It's great to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Yeah, so what is the bottom line?
Well, first of all, there's not a single bottom line, and I think that people are waking up to the fact that profit is just one thing that we're all about here. We have the environment to consider when we're pursuing profit, and we also have people. How do we treat people on our way to making a profit?
One of the most interesting things about recycling is it's a business.
Yeah.
How is it a business where most people think of it as a sacrifice?
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about the profit bottom line first, and recycling has been a business for over a century. We're looking in our trash can now that we've grown beyond newspapers and cardboards, and we're going, what else is a resource in here? And it turns out that almost everything in your trash can is a resource. There's no such thing as waste. So the key here, one of the foundations of a zero waste society, is that you at least separate the wet from the dry. Okay, the wet stuff for composting, the dry stuff for sorting and recycling. What zero waste does is it sets the goal of zero going to the landfill or in the incinerator. And what that means is that what we're discarding, because we'll always have discards, right? You'll always have food that you're not quite, it'll get thrown. You'll have packaging, you'll throw it. Every once in a while you have a broken product, you'll throw it. We call those discards. So the key is, how do we get those discards into separate bins so that we can then sort them for industry? Because industry will buy all that stuff back to make a new round of product. Yeah, it's the urban mine, exactly. And so what we need is people to participate, people and businesses to actually do the sorting of those items. And then people like us, the zero waste businesses, will then take it, convert it into a feedstock for industry.
Why would people want you to come and give the talk at their business or in front of their school? Or
Well, how much good news have you heard lately about the environment? Not much. This is one of the most important good news stories on the planet right now. This is an opportunity to change slightly how we live and have a huge impact. And I don't mean change dramatically how you live. I'm talking about thinking about what you're about to discard and where it's going to go, and having a huge impact on climate change, having a huge impact on the place that resource came from in the first place. And so it's a good news story. It happens to be cheaper than landfilling and incineration. It's far, far cleaner, and it allows you to actually maximize the triple bottom line, not just profits, but also environmental improvement and social justice.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.